Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Thank you very much. I just want to make sure you're awake. For those of you who joined us last night at the gala dinner, it was a lovely evening out by the pool. We had a little bit of drizzle, but we got through that. And thanks again for all of you who came. A special hello as well to our global audience. We've had, just a reminder, obviously we have our Automotive Logistics Live, which has been streaming this conference around the world, and we've had quite a few comments in and quite a few people here in India, but also elsewhere in other markets who've been watching. And that's just a reminder as well that the conference will be available to watch afterwards, so you can check in on the sessions. We had a great day yesterday. Maybe just a little bit of recap from my side. We heard, India is getting back on track, set for quite strong growth over the next years. I think the forecast was for as much as 9-10% for next year, and sort of keeping a strong pace. So, following some years of unsteadiness, it looks to be heading in the right direction. There are the challenges in logistics that we all know so well about, whether it's infrastructure or capacity issues, but we've also heard some good news on that front as well, whether it's investments in ports, rail corridors, and roads. And indeed, the supply chain has advanced processes across the board. So, we're not a beginner's market here. So there's a lot of, I think, quite positive news as we come in today, and we've got another great day ahead of you, including with our first session, which is entitled Industry India 4.0: The Evolution of the Smart Factory of the World. So, of course, referencing the term Industry 4.0. Not something that I think I probably need to define for all of you. It's sort of something we hear a lot about, perhaps particularly in places like Germany, where the emphasis on automation is stronger than certainly in places like India, but nevertheless, this sort of confluence of digitization, automation, big data, and technology, which is starting to transform aspects of manufacturing, and we think, or we expect, it will feed strongly through the supply chain. Again through automation and data, predictive data analytics and concepts. It might not be 100% relevant today in India. We were speaking earlier, if we talk about things like driverless trucks, it all might sound good, but we could do it some roads before we get driverless trucks. So, the emphasis might not be the same universally, but this is coming and this is starting. So it's important to get out ahead of it and understand what it might mean for your supply chain. And so we're very pleased and honored to have some great speakers with you this morning to share their perspective on it. We'll have presentations from, I believe it will be 4. We're still tracking down our other panelists, but either way, we have three great speakers on stage with us now. Shilpashri M. Head, who's the Head of Communications for Renault Nissan India. We're very pleased to have Shilpash with us this morning. Unfortunately, Colin McDonald was not able to join following the what's happening in Chennai, but very fortunate to have a great replacement sent to take you through what Industry 4.0 means for Renault Nissan here in India. We're also joined by R. Gopal, the Global Vice President of Transportation and Logistics Practice at Frost & Sullivan. And joining us on stage there as well is Jasjit Sethi, Chief Executive Officer for TCI Supply Chain Solutions. So we'll have our presentations first, as usual format, and then we'll move to the Q&A. And as we're a nice, intimate group, I expect lively participation from the audience. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Shilpash to the stage. Yeah.
Okay, good morning. I know most of you had a really late last night, I'm guessing, and a long day yesterday. So as Chris introduced me, I'm responsible for communications of the Renault Nissan Alliance in India. and I'm stepping in for Mr. Colin McDonald, who was supposed to be here. Logistics is something that's very close to his heart. A lot of them here globally also know him. He's always been a production and logistics person. So for me, I've been with the manufacturing industry and I know what currently it is. So this was a subject which was very close to my heart as well. Let me just take you through what I'm going to be telling you about. I'm going to quickly take you through what is Industry 4.0, which I'm guessing all of you know. What does it mean for Make in India and what we are currently doing in India with that respect. And a few things that we do at Renault Nissan globally as well. And we'll just sum it up with a few key messages that we as a company would like to add to this topic. Okay, so as all of you know, we've divided the industrial revolution into 4 stages, and the 4th one is what we're currently going through, where we're talking about how we integrate automation, how we integrate data, how we integrate IT into the way we manufacture and in the whole supply chain as well. And that's primarily what Industry 4.0 is. And if you were to see the value chain, if you were to see what it explains here is you've got automation on one end, you've got all the bits that industry talks about, but for me and for us as a company, the key focal point still is the customer and customer intimacy and what we do for them. And the challenge will always remain how the value chain actually participates in this whole activity of delivering the kind of intimacy, of delivering the kind of customer delight that we look forward to delivering with 4.0. This is just a snapshot of a couple of years ago. The data is a little old, but data on how many robos are actually being used across the globe and what's the procurement rate. The numbers must have changed, maybe not drastically, but I'm sure the percentage of spread out would similarly be the same, and you'd see where India stands, much lower than anybody else in the world. But my question to you is, so what? Let's get it straight. And I was just telling Chris this morning, I don't want to mince my words, but one of the primary reasons why any multinational invests in India or in China is for labor costs. That's how you start, and that is the truth, right? And India has its own challenges when it comes to managing stuff that's related to manufacturing as compared to we're a vast land. So the way you do business or the way you do manufacturing in one part of the country may not be the same as what it happens in the other place. So, there are mixes and matches over there. So this is just an average of what you see in terms of it. Okay, what does it mean to be a smart factory in India? Let me just quickly take you through something which is not new to you, right? You know what are the strengths of India. We're talking about India is going to be the 3rd largest automotive country in the world. And so let me give you our own story. The Renault Nissan Alliance globally has about 100 plants, 100 manufacturing setups, out of which 65 are Nissan, purely Nissan, and about 35 purely Renault. The Indian plant was the first, and till date, the only Alliance plant that actually manufactures on the same lines Renault, Nissan, Duster, all the brands, Renault, Nissan, Datsun, all the brands on the same lines. Okay, so if the Alliance chose India for this complex setup, they must have thought of something. And yesterday we had a speaker who spoke about Jugaad, right? And I think at times, although a lot of people from the West and from the East get a little perplexed as to Indians not on time, Indians unable to keep to, they can, you put a timetable and they'll never stay with it. But then I think the good thing about us Indians is our left brain and the right brain can work the way we want to. And you don't necessarily have to say A, B, C, D, has to be A, B, C, D. You mix them up, juggle them up, we'll still find a way out and a solution to it. And I think that's our strength. It will always remain like that because I was in Japan very recently and I don't think there's anybody from Japan, so it's okay. I don't know if somebody's there from Japan, but then, so Japanese are so strict on timetables, right? And they're so stuck on to, this has to be this way. You just tell them, no, we start 5 minutes late. The first thing they'll say, no, no, how can you do that? Not possible, not possible. And all that you would have asked them is that, no, let's hang on for 2 more minutes. We'll catch up on the road if required. We're waiting for somebody. No, we have to leave. We have to do it. But then the same thing, if you were to do it in India, they say, okay, fine. Let's do it. We'll catch up somewhere else. We'll finish it off. And, so we were saying, sometimes nations stress about these things, but for India, that probably is the reason why a lot of multinationals do come in and invest as well. Our labor cost definitely has been competitive, but I think these days even that is becoming a challenge. IT. India takes pride in developing and innovating in IT, but mostly for the world, not for India itself, and that is the truth. Okay, so a lot of work on innovation or on work that happens from Indians, maybe out of India or somewhere else, but it's for the world and very less for India itself. And I think the number of component manufacturers that we have in India in terms of sourcing, in terms of being able to get best quality, very good supply. Our own example again, we've started using India as a hub to actually export parts to a lot of our own manufacturing setups across the globe. So those are our strengths. But what's the challenge? I'm going to just talk about the inflation in wages. As I said, everybody invests in India first thinking cheap labor. Then cheap becomes competitive labor. Then they say, okay, there are a lot of other issues also related to it. So it's no more that. I mean, we have grown up to the stage where we started paying more or in par with, definitely nothing close to what is in the Europe, in the European countries, because wages there are much, much higher. Labor and employment and the legal framework that is there here, with its unionization, about how you deal with hire and fire of people, is also not as simple as what it is outside. Quality of engineering graduates. Okay, so that's something that I've put that as a challenge, primarily because we take pride in saying we've got the most number of engineers coming out of the country, etc., etc. But the question is, with so many of them breeding and coming out, are all of them prepared for the kind of challenges that the corporates or manufacturing setups or companies actually need? Probably no. So, it's just not book knowledge that's enough. So I think that's where is a challenge that, and we face it too, because after we recruit students as graduate engineering trainees, it takes us some amount of time to invest that kind of time and energy and resources to bring them up to speed to what we need. We're culturally different from the world, as I told you, that's something that we all know of. I think cross-functional working is also something that works in certain places, but not always. Not the way it probably works, especially for expats who work here. I mean, I don't know how many of you actually are expats who work here. I think the first 6 months or 8 months is very stressful for them just to understand the culture of India, just to understand how working happens here. I think that's like a big challenge for them. The Indian governance framework, I don't have to say much about it, probably getting better now, but will take some more time. An inadequate infrastructure. When I say that, it's because of when I say infrastructure, I purely mean hardcore infrastructure, like roads, bridges, and ports, and the way it goes on. So the question is, what is India's strength and how do we actually leverage it? And if you want to unlock potential, what should all of us be doing? At Renaissance, what we feel is that currently, labor cost is a little low, and use it. Automate. But you have to always be careful, because automation, we cannot do automation in isolation. As Renaissance, if I were to do automation, and if one of my suppliers is not able to do it, or if somebody from the logistics team is not able to do it, then there is no use. The whole chain has to move together. The whole chain has to move together. We can't say that we were the first movers, we did automation. And did what? You just invested and kept it depreciating there because somebody else is not able to hook on their systems or not able to use data the way you want them to use it. So we are at a transition stage, so it's going to take time. For now, use what is competitive for you, but slowly. I think it'll take probably, I don't know if I say a decade, maybe not everybody will agree because a lot of you in the supply chain are already fairly using automation or data or IT analysis. But I think for the whole country to kind of be able to catch up it'll probably take us at least another 6-8 years, easily, because a lot of companies have not even started investing in these things, frankly. So I've worked with companies like Volvo, with Terex in the past, and I can tell you very clearly that probably we are the heavy industries or automotive are one of the last ones to even think of going towards IT. We still feel it's a little alien for our engineers who are so used to the grease and so used to the nut and bolts in the factory, and that is the truth. This is a simple picture which I'm trying to show you is that how ideally does our product flow. Basically we talk about the supplier who's giving his components, then you have the transporter who delivers it, then you have the warehousing and the factory, you produce it, and then you move it out to the next stage of the chain, which is it goes to the dealers. For us, basically, it goes out to the dealers and then goes out to the end customer. And what about information flow? I've just shown you one line, but I'm sure there are so many more, right? The customer. So today what happens? We have our own tests that our engineers do on the field to know how a car is working or if there are errors, what can we improve, etc., etc. But real feedback comes from a customer. Now, does the customer reach out to a manufacturer directly? No, there is no way. Of course, there are things like social media where somebody tweets saying that my car broke down here and this, but that's not really feedback, right? You pick that up, you run with that data. But ideally, your flow of information comes back when the customer goes back to the dealer, then the dealer the dealer tries to fix it up, then they say, no, this is something I need to go back to the manufacturer. Then we realize that, oh my God, we've got something wrong. So maybe it was the supplier, must have been the airbag problem, so let's go back to the supplier. So that's how information flows. But what is the ideal condition? And this is something I think India will probably move to one day. All of us know how heavy it is to carry inventory costs, right? And you will know that most manufacturers carry huge inventory, primarily because sales guys always have reasons, right? Either the monsoons were good or the monsoons were bad. Festive season went well or festive season did not go well. So, you've always got reasons not to have inventory lying in there. The ideal solution would be to build to order. Will that ever happen in India? I think it'll take some time. Carry minimal inventory, but ideally be able to be in a position where you have clear orders on hand. Get your order, get the supply, manufacture, and then deliver to the customer. I think that's going to take a long time, but that's probably an ideal thing that every car manufacturer is looking at. If that's possible, it saves us a lot in the supply chain. Excuse me. So just briefly tell you, there are 4 points that we think that a smart factory actually has to. A smart factory ideally has to sell what it builds. So you have to be close to your customer. You should know what are their needs, what exactly they want, what are their wants. And in the process, you learn yourself and see whether you're catching up with the general public who's using your products. Design your supply chain both upstream and downstream to deliver customer intimacy, as I told you. So every time, customer has to be key to any plans or strategies that you make. And I think it's easy for me to stand here and say that, but your supply chain should be able to take the troughs and the crests that actually come in business. Is it really possible? I'm not too sure, but then there are some companies who manage it pretty well. Why is it that they are able to float through even when there's recession? Why is it that they're able to manage it better? Is it because somebody's... So sometimes being risk averse maybe pays off. Sometimes being on the middle line and not going way ahead and taking risk and doing investments, but being on an average line probably helps when there's huge recession or something like that. But I think the supply chain has to be able to take sudden dips and highs that actually come in the market. Okay, and the other 2 points, one is, of course, on employees, where I think the investment has to always be, you have to be sure of the employees that you work with. You have to invest in them, develop them into potentials. And for a company like us, we've got about, our plant area is about 1,000 acres, out of which about 300 acres is just a supplier park. We've got all our large suppliers right there. We not only invest in training our own employees, but we also work with the supplier employees, try and see how we could get them into speed, so that they understand what exactly are our needs, and how do they match up to quality needs. And the one on the top is talking about operational excellence on the shop floor and in whatever we do. That is, just do the plan, do, check, act almost every day. And we do that. And especially with the kind of work that you have, and I said, culturally different. You've got people from across the globe working under the same roof. The way everybody thinks is very different. What you put on paper is probably not what you get delivered at the end of the day. So it is challenging. And that's where your whole, PDCA comes into place. But while doing all of this, be very careful of the total cost, because the total delivered cost is what actually affects your product's pricing, and that's what your customer actually gets. So, and the whole process, and that's the reason why when I said automation also, keep it low. So Colin McDonald, who was supposed to be here, used to work in the Sunderland plant, the NM UK plant, the Nissan Sunderland plant, which today is one of the biggest ones for Nissan and produces very high-end cars as well. So he was telling me, Sunderland went through what India is probably going through today about 10, 15 years ago. They were labor intensive. Initially, they had very low on robotics, very low on automation. But then labor costs started increasing. And then they said, okay, fine. Instead of this, let's start investing in automation. So we'll go through that cycle ourselves, I'm sure. I'll quickly take you through what we do in the Alliance in India specifically. So as I told you, we've got about 1,000 acres, out of which 300 plus acres is for the suppliers, and the plant is built across 640 acres in Chennai, in Orgadam, which is right for those from India who would know where Sri Perumbudur is. So that's where it's the plant. And we have a manufacturing capacity for close to 5 lakh cars per annum. We currently are working at about 60% capacity. And as I said, let's get it straight. The reason why the Alliance invested in India is because the domestic market of India is so large, and that's why they invested so big, right? I mean, if you want to capture a market as huge as this, there's no point in importing and selling, and that's the reason why, we invested in such a large plant. We started exports by the end of 2012, I think, and we truly are an example of Make in India. Frankly, as compared to a lot of other companies who just talk about it, we truly are an example because we export to about 104 countries from India, and left-hand drive, right-hand drive. I mean, for those of you, you're welcome. You can always come in and see our plant. The same line will manufacture a Datsun. The next car will probably be a Renault. The next one will be a Nissan. So we don't really have a line specifically for Nissan or a line specifically for Renault, making it more complex for our people. But I think that's where the advantage of India is, as I said, right? I mean, the way a Renault car is built is kind of different from the way a Nissan car is built. The bolting, the nuts. I will go fast, Chris. But then, I think because it's India, people have been able to gear up, catch up, have been able to learn the tricks. So the same guy is trained to work on a Renault car, on a Datsun car, or on a Nissan car. And we've exported more than 500,000 cars till date. And we're the top 3 exporters. So you've got Maruti, you've got Hyundai, and you've got us, so doing the race for the largest number of exports out of India. We've got capability of R&D as well. So the plant and the R&D center employs about 10,000 people full-time. And we've got another 5,000 contract employees who work on both sides. And in the supply chain, if you were to take, I think we've provided employment for close to 40,000 people who work in our dealerships, who work in our supplier bases. And these are suppliers who solely take care of our needs and are in the supplier park. And in India, we're low on automation. You'll be surprised with the figure that I put up there, right? 17%. But I don't think the automation across most companies in India is more than 25 or 30%, because that's the stage that we are in currently. And we have no AGVs currently on our side. We recently launched the Renault Kwid. Mid of this year, it was a big global launch for us as well. The first time that the Renault Kwid is being developed in any country, so this is home ground for it. R&D was done in India. A team of guys who sit right there in Chennai, and we launched it. Today we're talking about bookings of about 70,000. So that means our order line is crazily booked for a long time. That line is completely manual, 0% automation. If you need that kind of price point, it's a small car, right? You're competing with the Altos of the world, you're competing with the Eons of the world. For that price point, we cannot have any automation on that line. That's a 100% manual line. So how do you achieve that kind of cross point? Is only because it's labor cost. We export to the world, as I told you. So there's one line where I said it's important not to be one plant with one market. So if you were to be a plant which is dependent just on one market, survival will never happen. You should always have your backup plans. That's where exports actually help us. This is our vision, and I've highlighted a few words over here, which is customer-focused, sustainable, and delivers excellence for the global market. I'll focus on the word sustainable because it's easy to invest, start building, have crazy vision and ideas, but if you don't have sustainability for the plant or for any business, there's no point in being in business. You'll have to shut shop after 5 years and leave the country. So we got to be very careful as to how we balance out, the needs and our deliverables. We've got something called the Alliance Production Way that we launched this year, and I'll tell you what is the Alliance Production Way. We've all heard about the Toyota Way, right, which is such a big thing, and a lot of companies do follow it. I also mentioned that Renault and Nissan have very different ways of building the cars. So the Renault production system and the Nissan production way had their own positives, but then this plant saw the complexity of what it is to, build two different type of cars, two different type of manufacturing setups. And we said, why not bring both of them together, the best of both worlds, and try and see how we can match it up together. And that's how the Alliance Production Way was given birth to. We launched it earlier this year, and India is the first. I told you, India is great for test ground. Anybody who wants to do testing, you want guinea pigs, we're already here. And I think we're best for trials because our boys and girls can think differently at different times, the way you want it. So, and the two primary, although it's manufacturing, you'll see the focus, the principles of APW still are around the customer. So one is what we call Doke Sehsan, which is basically synchronization with the customer, and the other one is the quest to identify problems and put, solutions into place. And for us, that is being a smart factory. That means you know your customers and you know how to get your act right internally as well. This is it's a very internal slide, but then, we've got HR development there, daily, as I said, the PDCA that we do daily, quality management, of course, and then you synchronize with your customer. This again is, how on the shop floor we'd actually manage to get, problems, how we were to do the problem solving, how we've got small groups internally which work. And there are 3 nevers that we always talk about, and I think other companies also talk about it, but we talk about it a little more, where we say never receive any defect. So for anybody standing on in the manufacturing line, never receive a defect, never pass on a defect, and never produce any defect. So this is the last slide, which basically shows a body shop that is kind of, so a lot of our plants globally as well are not 100% automated, or a long way to go, but we're already on the process. There are a lot of plants which, I think a lot of our plants in Japan have actually got automation on and are way ahead of what India is currently. And so these are the various places that we currently use automation if we were to go to an automated body shop line of our own. So to sum it up, as I said, all the messages that we have is that have a balanced approach towards automation. Don't go overboard initially, because your chain also has to be ready to be able to accept that kind of thing. We talk about, if you were to talk about FMCG or some other industry or IT for that matter, the kind of mechanisms or the kind of data crunching that they can do, we still aren't there to do that kind of data crunching. And even if I were to do that kind of data crunching at my end, is it at all going to be useful if my chain is not able to understand it or is not able to get me that kind of data? Be smart, use the strengths of India. Be smart and use the supply chain and information. As I said, and not necessarily that because you're in India, you don't necessarily have to get the IT that's already working in Germany somewhere or has been great somewhere in Japan. You can actually get your local guys here to develop a solution that can suit your needs in this country. And that's probably going to be the most economical as well. And stay synchronized with the customer and develop people. So that definitely is what we suggest. And for us, that's what is a smart factory. Somebody who's able to balance between the customer and the supply chain, and also take care of their of their employees is ideally. And we have a long way to go before we become what smart factory is defined globally. Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shilpash. I think the presentation really said it all there. Obviously, a company like Renault Nissan across the world will have some lines with very high levels of automation, or some segments. Here in India, that's probably not the case yet. And obviously, mentioning the Quid line, which is interesting, is 100% manual, but using the strengths of the country. But I think the points on synchronization, so synchronization with the customer and down the supply chain, I think are obviously very relevant to the wider themes of Industry 4.0 and how India could indeed move closer towards smart factories. So look forward to some discussion and Q&A on that point, but I'd like to move on to our next presenter, R. Gopal from Frost & Sullivan.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Very good morning. Nobody had breakfast? Good morning? Good morning. Not enough. I tend to sleep in a standing position too. Good morning. One more time. Good morning. Yeah, much better. Okay. So my presentation is going to be pretty short. Probably not more than 5 to 7 minutes. So like I said, I'm Gopal. I manage Frost & Sullivan's transportation and logistics practice. Based in Dubai. Previously, I've spent about close to 10 years in Malaysia and Singapore. Focus primarily on logistics and supply chain. Been on the other side of the fence with third-party logistics companies too. Been in the research and consulting field for some time. Have also spent some time on the automotive side of things. So today is a little bit of a new topic too, for me too. It's in terms of the technology and big data. So before I get into this topic, can I get a show of hands on how many of you understand big data? Okay, there is 2 here, there's 1 there, 2. Okay. How many of you in your organizations are applying this concept? Okay, there is 2. So it seems relatively very new. So that's one of the reasons why what we have here today is a bit more of a theoretical way. Like Subhashri was mentioning towards the close of her presentation that there is a lot of data crunching that one could do. That's a nice, leading statement. But even if you do that, the system is not understanding. So what is the point? So that is one of the challenges that we have about big data today. So today, over the next 5 to 7 minutes, I'll just briefly walk you through what this is all about. But before that, just putting in the context, that was a nice statement from Subhashri in terms of how that relates to the automotive supply chain. But if you look at a broader logistics standpoint, logistics is all about moving money, materials, and information. That's it. These are the 3 things that we need to worry about when we talk about logistics. Money has its own pace. Today, all the emerging economies are focusing on materials. So which means we are building warehouses, we are building transport infrastructure, we are building all the brick and mortar part of the supply chain. Information has been the focus in most of the developed economies, because traditionally in the logistics space, information has been moved using paper. So today, with the digitization, there is so much of information that is actually moved electronically, and that is why it's actually very important today to understand what are the things that one could do extra when we talk about information. Because sitting here, if you're able to track where your trucks are, track the inventory, the track where your consumers are actually buying from, and so on. So this is a significant differentiator when we talk about logistics. So with that, let me move into the presentation. So the presentation is structured along, just start like I said, like I saw, show of hands, there is only 2 people who are familiar with big data. Applications are also very limited. So we'll start talking about what is big data, and then how is it connected with logistics. And I'll briefly run through, of course I think the presentation will be available later. I'll briefly run through some of the results that some of the industries have been getting using big data, and some of the risks and how to manage them. So big data. So today, with the explosion of data, there is so much amount of data which is unstructured. With regard to the same customer, the data is generated in different formats or from different sources. That is why it is very unstructured, but it will relate to, there will be some kind of a common element. And the core feature is that we need to process all these large amounts of data. So big data is essentially nothing but a new way of collecting, analyzing, and storing data, which creates opportunities to utilize this information. Again, going back to Subhashri's point, is that you can collect and you can analyze, but can the system make meaning out of it? So this, in conjunction with cloud as well as the mobility of today, because today, for example, all the automotive companies, slowly are transforming themselves, and they are saying, we are not a car manufacturer or a commercial vehicle manufacturer, we are a mobility company. Everybody is talking about mobility solutions. Today people are getting into electronic monitoring, as well as offering eco-friendly modes of transportation along with their primary products and so on. So very soon you will see probably Nissan calling themselves a mobility solution provider rather than an automotive manufacturer. So structured versus unstructured. So structured data is when you have columns in relational, there is a relation between all those things. Unstructured is, there is no identifiable or consistent structure, and it can come from any source, which could be a web page. Like I said, morning you had coffee in some place, you had a transaction on the internet from, you bought a ticket. So these are all relating to the same customer, but could come from different sources. So there are 3 important characteristics of this big data. So the first is volume. So there is incredible amount of data. So today you have all these data from your handheld, your computers, and so much amount of data. And variety. It is coming. The variety of the information is very different. Like I said, it could be a spending that you do. It could be something that that relates to your specific purchase for the day, or it could be anything. And the velocity, the data, sitting here probably, I see a lot of people are, fiddling with their mobile phones. I'm sure since morning they probably got about 20 emails. That is the speed at which today information is hitting you. What is the role of big data in logistics? Firstly, it can help in optimization. We are dealing with tangible goods and tangible customers, so there are touch points, and it helps you be in sync with customers. And it is a network of information. And most importantly, logistics is all about being local, but at the same time offer a global coverage. So this network of information helps it from that perspective. Just to spend a little bit of time on this optimization, it helps in improving the service properties like delivery time, resource utilization, as well as geographical coverage, and also most importantly, predictive. Today, a lot of, for example, whether we talk about a lot of these natural disasters, whether it is Japan earthquake or tsunami or the Thailand floods, it has all impacted the automotive industry, electronics industry, and also now recently with Chennai. So there is a lot of predictive, during this time, for example, during the time when Thailand floods happened, the hard disk prices shot up by almost 200 ringgit. That's almost like $60. The price of the hard disk was, 1 terabyte hard disk was probably about $60, $70. It shot up, because of the supply chain disruption. And tangible goods and tangible customers. We are talking about delivering tangible goods to real customers. So, for example, when we were discussing in the past about big data, I thought, I was not very sure, like in a similar audience, and I thought, it's going to be a completely foreign subject. And next came a speaker from UPS, and his first slide, didn't have any title. It was just full of 101010, just all over the slide. So he was saying how they are utilizing the information in terms of tracking the delivery patterns, and they, I think most of you would be aware of this traveling salesman problem in operations research. You actually figure out the best way for the salesperson to, to attend to, so many customers. So one side, they use the UPS system, which uses a lot of data to actually schedule a delivery for a particular person for a single day. And the other side, purely in terms of a traveling salesman problem, and see who actually does the maximum number of deliveries in a day. Obviously, the system won by close to 3 additional deliveries in the day. So this is the amount of information that is lying in there, which companies are using to better reach customers. So that again leads to the point that you can have a better sense of the heartbeat of the individual businesses, vertical markets, and so on. And like I said, even a simple transportation network on the ground has an immense amount of data and provides a high resolution data source. So like, for example, like I said, how UPS uses it and so on. So applications, for example, resource industries, a company in Africa used it to optimize their oil and gas mining process to improve resource extraction as well as operational efficiencies. And a telecommunications company helped in analyzing all the data that they collected and providing better customer service. Retail company. Retail is a very interesting subject when it comes to big data, because retail is one of the key contributors to the amount of data that is, you have this point of sale terminals and so on and so forth. So it actually helps when you have an analysis of all the data. It actually helps you decide where should you be opening your next outlet. Yeah? And for example, in the public sector, NYPD uses it to solve crimes and create profiling of what could actually happen. So this is the kind of advantages of big data. Banking and financial services helps in identifying fraud as well as payments, and also providing multiple services to single customers and so on. Having said that, any unknown subject comes with a lot of considerations. Same here goes to big data. One is in terms of the initial investment, because you need to constantly collect data, which means you got to be constantly collecting information. So which means you need to put in initial investments into systems to collect this data. Second is in terms of appropriate skills and knowledge. Again, going back to Subhashri's presentation, she was mentioning about some good talent that is available, at the same time some talent which is missing. Again, in terms of ICT, although we are providing services for the rest of the world, and in some cases it is purely based on a theory of comparative advantage and not really a skill set basis. So for example, in the ICT development index of that Information Technology Union does, India still, despite the ICT sector increasing the services sector revenues of the economy to more than 50%. Previously, in India, about 10 years back, services sector was close to 25% of the economy, right? Today, India, Malaysia, etc., some of these countries in the Asian region have a services sector contribution of more than 50% of the economy. ICT has contributed a big thing to this, but despite that, in terms of the overall skill development, we are still 131, right? So that still, we are still providing services at some level of, a comparative cost advantage basis only. And integration of disparate systems. For example, within the organization, there are still a lot of systems that need to share data. And that today also, every organization, the biggest problem is silos. Every, individual organization within the, the teams work in silos. And also, big data, like I said, it is still new, and the service providers don't really have standard services, and consequently it creates ambiguity in terms of in the minds of the customers. And quantification of benefits. You really can't simply correlate. You know the cost, but you can't really equate it to, okay, how many customers am I winning? How many cars am I selling? How have I increased the service parts revenue beyond the 3 years of contract warranty and so on? That quantification is missing, which is what is actually pulling a lot of companies back from actually making the investments. And business and IT alignment. A lot of times IT, we have common complaints even in every organization, or IT, they have their own world. There are two departments. I don't know if somebody is from those divisions. Please pardon me. IT and finance. We always try to, that is IT, that is finance. And data transparency and governance. So when you are requesting data from the other divisions, obviously, there is need for transparency within the organization. And naturally, how you deal with it brings in the governance angle. And data privacy. Today, if you see, most of the economies are actually bringing in data privacy regulation. So which means, although we can be excited in collecting a lot of good data, how you use it can always become a public debate. And like I mentioned earlier, in terms of how you're applying it, as well as what kind of technology today you want to use, these things will also have to be considered. So I will probably deal with the question Q&A later. But in summary, when we are talking about big data and its applications, like I was mentioning earlier, we can potentially, from an overall logistics standpoint, it actually helps in terms of optimization and making sure that we are more predictive. And specifically, if you're looking at it from an automotive context standpoint, it can actually help in knowing the customer better, their spending patterns. How can we have a significant share of the service parts revenues. For example, today for automotive manufacturers, that's the biggest challenge. The challenge is that beyond a point, beyond 3 years or 2 years, you lose the customer to an independent workshop. And this contributes, the service parts revenues for any organization, for any automotive manufacturer, accounts for close to about 30% in terms of its profitability and 25% in terms of its margins. So it's not just, they're not primarily trying to just sell more cars and more cars. Beyond a point, there is a limitation. So there needs to be more focus in terms of also service parts revenue. So how do you get that? So you can't do that without having a complete understanding of the customer and the overall analysis in terms of what the customer could be doing with other priorities and preferences. That's where big data steps in. So I hope I did some justice to this topic, and I hope I can have. So can I have now a show of hands of how many people have gotten to know big data? That's it? Okay. Thank you so much. That's been wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gopal. I think the success rate kind of proved itself there in the amount of people who understand it. I think obviously raised some really interesting points, and I think you referencing the service part supply chain at the end there is particularly relevant. I mean, I've spoken to manufacturers who are, using advanced data mining to control their inventory management, to understand more what parts are slow moving, and they can design their warehouses or their networks around that. Again, going back to Shilpash's point in the beginning, maybe the application for India is different in a market that's still emerging, and you don't have those historic patterns that tell you much when so much is new. But still, these are concepts and ideas which, although have risks, are certainly going to be relevant to your supply chains. At Automotive Logistics, we also try to learn from our audience and customers and things like just-in-time logistics and synchronization with the supply chain. So our next speaker, we're controlling very tightly in a time scope so that he could arrive just in time for his presentation. And we're pleased that he did make it through the Delhi traffic. So Rajiv Bajaj, Vice President and Partner from Nomura Research Institute of India.
Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the day 2, 10th of December today. I apologize. I was listening to the first presentation from outside. I was running a little late and I didn't want to disturb the presenter. So first things first, thank you Automotive Logistics, thank you Ultima Media, thank you Louis, Nimish, Rostov. Thank you very much for inviting us to share our thoughts on I would say an evolving topic around Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing, more importantly, its implications to supply chain, and also this whole Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, lots of buzzes going around. But it's all good. I also thank Shilpa for setting the stage and sharing what's happening in Renault Nissan and linking it up to smart manufacturing, and Gopal for introducing us to big data. I think this is a very evolving topic, and therefore, while there is a certain broad commonality that you will see in anybody who is talking about Industry 4.0, but I think it's going to evolve into what companies make of it. So what I have done is I've talked about two things today, a little bit of what is happening around Industry 4.0 and what I think are some implications on supply chain. But then I'll just swiftly move into the Make in India, without any breaks, and just probably try and not completely link the two, but just talk about two different perspectives, the Make in India value proposition and the Industry 4.0 and supply chain 4.0. I think one thing is very clear, we are all living in fairly volatile times, and I was just checking with Jasjeet, he's a key man from the industry, as to what is the mood, and he was telling me it's a bit mixed. There's clearly some optimism around companies that are achieving good performance, but it's also a clear turnaround for the commercial vehicle industry, medium to heavy, but they're still mixed. And I think this is going to be the norm. We are rarely going to see a period now of very consistent, predictable outcomes. Clearly, nobody can predict a natural calamity or a natural disaster, but even in business, the way forces will move and the way they will impact different things. And I think on one hand, this creates a lot of pressures on management and companies because they need to now be ready for this new normal, which is very volatile. But I think it puts a premium and it initiates leaders and managers to be therefore more creative. We looked at the whole VUCA word, and again, just to introduce VUCA to people who don't know, this word was emerged out of the US-Iraq war, wherein the US forces were facing such a volatile, uncertain, ambiguous sort of environment that VUCA was created, and it's become a common word now. But I think we can all turn this into a little bit of more positive, which is around vision, understanding, clarity, and action. And I think Industry 4.0 is also a vision which has started to emerge. It has emerged in Germany and now sort of spread all around the world. And I think if you reflect back, we had the first mechanical loom in the late 1700s, and then after 100 years we had the first production line, and then somewhere around 1970 we had the whole emergence of the PLC in terms of industrial revolutions. And now somewhere around the 2010 we have this cyber physical integration, which is essentially Industry 4.0. Very simply put, and different countries are using different terms. In the US, the term of smart manufacturing is more common. In Europe, it's Industry 4.0. It's clearly linking up the power of various devices, the power of man-to-machine communications, the power of data or big data, and of course the internet and the cyber world powering all of this. So it's clearly saying all of this has been working, all of this is now available. How can we link all of this and create something smarter? Siemens has almost clearly demonstrated a whole architecture, which they call from shop floor to top floor. And essentially that's another way to think about Industry 4.0, which is manufacturing is one silo, logistics is one silo, top floor wants dashboard, but can there be a shop floor to top floor? And that's essentially what is the vision of this fourth revolution in manufacturing and the overall value chain. And one thing we are seeing common now is that even companies which were very, very tight about their systems, their legacy systems, they have started to become open. And auto is one of the last industries to sort of, it's a very powerful industry internally, but one of the last industries to sort of open up. But this is very commonly seen now, whether we look at Daimler, we look at other companies, that they're becoming open. They realize that they need to link with logistics, which means third-party service providers. They need to link with dealers and customers again, which needs an easier channel. And also, the way we are now linking up is becoming very mobile, so which means you need to be open to cloud and things. So I think that's another phenomenon that we are seeing, which also means opportunities for new solution providers. Clearly, companies like Bosch has been able to bring this together, right from customer to product development to logistics to employees. I think some of the cues we also got from Shilpa as to what Renault Nissan is doing. So we believe Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, will create new opportunities. Now, like most matured markets, these opportunities are expected to be larger in Europe and US. But we believe a silent revolution is happening in India, and it will continue to happen. It will have the Indian mindset of coming up with solutions. But I think clearly it's an area of opportunity. For the companies, for the OEMs, it's an opportunity to create more value. For LSPs, it's an opportunity to integrate with companies. And around these two, there'll be a third community that will actually create these solutions in terms of IT linkages, etc. In terms of supply chain implications, I think we are going to see high transparency, which means now we can have high status of supply chain and its nodes as to what is happening where. The amount of information is going to increase, which will also mean another complexity, but I think information is going to come automatically now. So once the standardized formats are set, the acquisition of information now is going to be automatic through sensors and devices. And this information also can be very seamlessly distributed. Earlier you had to send things, but now you could provide things and people can go and just see them online. But I still think this is not about removing the interface that is needed by the intelligence or a team or a supply chain manager or a logistics manager, etc. In fact, I think it takes them to the next level because now they have smarter availability, and which still means that they have to still take right decisions at the right time. So I think the whole I 4.0 or SCM 4.0 is going to elevate the level of value and decision making that supply chain needs to do. And clearly one company, Fraunhofer, presented a methodology that we could create a logistical support system solution, which will then access all this real-time data and then provide the logistical support needed out of this data. As I said, I'll swiftly move to Make in India. Everybody in India is sort of it's just become a household word, which is very good. When industrial and job-creating words become household words, we think we're on the right track for especially a country like India. We all know the vision, but I think the important point is to look at that there are two things also set out in this vision, which is one is about skill sets. And this industry or supply chain industry needs those skill sets desperately across levels, not just as the people who will drive the cars and the trucks, but also people who handle the goods, the people who handle the systems and the supply chain. And also, I think the other thing this vision talks about is to increase the technological depth in manufacturing, and which is where the Industry 4.0 comes in. But one thing that is very critical for all of us to think, and especially more the manufacturers, which is India is not isolated, and we are competing in a very, very competitive era across the world. And therefore, India needs to have its own value proposition. And this is a struggle because we are not going to be as good in infrastructure or as low in costs as China in certain fields. And therefore, the way India can create its own value proposition is to create technological depth, to create more value, but do it in a frugal manner, because its manpower cost and solution capability is much. Manpower cost is low, its solution capability is higher. And the frugality concept of India, not to use the word jugaad because that is short-term solution, but the frugal concept, unlike when we look at a solution coming from Europe, we think it's too much bells and whistles, too much catered to a European environment or a Western environment. But what we need in India is solution that fits our local needs, not more, not less. I'm also borrowing this word actually from Nissan's, Renault Nissan's Carlos Ghosn. He really popularized the word frugal almost probably 8-10 years back. We also need speed in India because we're evolving very fast, and we also need a light asset model, low capex model for almost anything that we do. If we can take this from India, I think we'll solve the problems here, and we'll also probably create solutions for the emerging markets. I think I'll skip this. One of the examples when we work with machine tool companies is that they figured out that there is a certain type of machine that the Western makers and people from Japan and Korea would be good at. There's a certain type of machine probably people from China would be good at. But if we can take a set of characteristics and create a smart, frugal machine, is probably where India would be good at. And it'll work well within the emerging markets. You also saw recent success in a leading Japanese company, Honda, which created a very successful model, which was again a frugal product engineering. They took something that was there, they got something out, they got something in, and created Amaze, which did a very good success in the entry-level sedan. Closing thought. The automotive industry has achieved a very good performance in this country. It's looked at as the flag bearer of the manufacturing industry and job creation and skill job creation. It has broadly achieved its vision of 2015-2016, almost there. And now the whole industry has set out the next 10-year vision, which will be unveiled probably soon enough by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister. But broadly speaking, the industry is thinking about 5x growth. And out of the turnover of $300 billion, it's looking at 33% coming from exports and about 50% coming from the domestic market. I think all of us, OEMs, suppliers, know that this is going to be a tremendous opportunity as well as challenge within the logistics space and all models around it. So we hope that all of these things allow or force both sides, OEMs and logistics service providers, to either do the same things better, which is going to be a pure need every day, but also to do some better things and to create some more innovative ideas to solve our problems. So with that, I would close my presentation and look forward to being around through the day today and interact with all of you and now and during the think tanks, and to generate more innovation and solution-oriented thoughts during the day. Thank you for having us and look forward to interacting with you. Thank you.
Thank you again, Rajiv. I think as we've moved through our presenters there, you're getting a number of different perspectives on Industry 4.0 and big data. And there you've got some very, very good comments and insights into what the local version of these kinds of things might mean. Maybe more frugal, stripped down, but still, again, very important as you move towards growth and some of those huge visions that Rajiv made reference to there. Our last speaker we'll hear directly from a logistics service provider what this smart factories and evolution of 4.0 means to him and to India. Pleased to invite Jas Giusetti from TCI.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. When I ask good morning twice, it just should not seem that the earlier speakers have put you to sleep. So we as a team started from OEM and then to people from the transport think tank industry and then to research analysts. And I would try to close this complete loop by looking at the supply chain aspect along with manufacturing. My talk is on 4 parts. First is Industry 4.0. Then it is to link the disruptive technologies, especially in logistics, towards Logistics 4.0. Then a brief about the Skill India and Make in India. And of course, I want to ask why me and why me at the end. So following up with such luminaries, I think as a team, the practitioner always gets to have the last word. On the Industry 4.0, I will not talk much because Shilpa and Rajiv both have given a very good overview about the 4 industrial revolutions. I'll just put a few points across to you that in the Industry 4.0, there are about 6 design principles which one needs to understand the whole process. It is interoperability, virtualization, rather what is being physical becomes virtual, decentralization, and also machines thinking for themselves on set-based algorithms rather than waiting for a decision. And that is what is called the real-time capability. And the focus of all this is the customer, so you have to have the service orientation. And today the product life cycles have become very short. So you heard Rajiv talking about less investment. So you have to be modular, be able to shift from one type of model to another pretty quickly. So these are the 6 principles on which Industry 4.0, which was coined in Germany in 2013, is based. I won't go sequentially. I'll come to why me, what I am doing here. TCI is actually into design as well as for execution. So we have a large design win. That's why we are called Supply Chain Solutions. And we work across different verticals, which is a healthy thing because you come to know about other industries. Like e-commerce is a very different ball game from aftermarket warehousing. So is the cold chain, so are chemicals. So these different segments help us to gain perspectives and apply cross learnings. We also have been always at the forefront of technology. The first computer looked something like this was in 1979. And despite the current data speeds of India still being low, we went online with the ERP in 2007, which was just on a dial-up of 56K modem. So that is how the frugal system which we have been using. So that is the reason why I'm here discussing about Logistics 4.0. I'll come to the disruptive technologies quickly, and what are those? This is also part of our consulting win. This is their study paper. So a part is the harnessing of the internet. Now, internet is about big data. I think it's been covered very well with Gopal. There's nothing I want to add on to that. It is a bit like a lot of people may not know about big data, but they do see movies. They would have seen a movie or a session called Koi Mil Gaya. So that guy was with the computers, looking at space, sending an ohm, and getting a response back. So he could get some signal out of a noise. So that is big data. That you have a lot of stuff going out in the internet, what you can make sense of that. That is big data for us. So we may not need to understand technology, how it works, how everything works, but as long as we are enjoying it and using it, that is enough. Second is the cloud. Now, what the cloud does is a very interesting thing, that it takes away the need for having your device to do computing and storage on your hand. And that enables you to have data anywhere on demand. Just imagine that if you needed water and you had a pot of water at your home, you couldn't use it. So what's the use of that water which you cannot use because it's spotted? So you'd rather have something which is on demand. And that example goes very well with the cloud today. You may not need to have your data on your handheld, but if you can access it, if you can process it. So the processing power is no longer in your handheld. It's about convergence. The convergence talks about 3 devices: a device at 10 feet away, which is your television; a device 2 feet away, which is your computer; and a device which is 2 inches away, which is your mobile phone. And all of them doing the same thing. It's the cloud which enables them. Today we have smart TVs, and many people in their homes would have that. So in a way, we are using that cloud for that purpose. And the third part of this is the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is not an app, a computer app talking to something. It is about machines talking to each other. It is about a vending machine telling the replenishment that I am out of these bottles. Can you please send that to me? It's about machines talking to each other and taking a decision. The shelf on the refrigerator, which has got eggs on that, telling the grocer that I am out of eggs. I'm giving a very small basic example about this. So Internet of Things, it is calculated that by 2020, there will be 50 million devices which will be talking to each other. And for example, if you are going to a mall and you are buying something, there's a RF tag on that. If you go out, it beeps. Today you have a security agency who kind of asks you, where are you going, with something in your pocket. So what if that device would trigger off the shutter to get closed so person cannot go out? So that is Internet of Things in a very, very simple way. How to use that machine talking to a machine and having an algorithm to ensure it happens in a predictable way. So why IoT is important, it will take away the decision making of the individual at that point and making a mistake. So it will make things much more accurate than we are today. To harness the internet for India, India unfortunately is not amongst the top in terms of internet speed. If you look at the results of 2014, not this year, that those are not out yet, we are 51 out of 55 countries in terms of speed at just 2 Mbps. But that will change exponentially in 2016, exponentially. Many homes today are getting broadband at the speed of 50 Mbps. There are fiber optics which are coming in many homes in many cities today. And that will change a lot of things. What else will change this is the penetration of smartphones. Smartphones today to 2020 is going to be 4 times. They've just started, data costs are going down, and many of the online shopping portals have become app only. If you shop by an app, the discount is more. They don't want you to go to the net for that. So all these will lead to that we will be able to harness the internet 10x times in the next few years. The second point here is about a sharing economy. We spoke about it yesterday. I think it was in a presentation we spoke about the Uber way. So let's look at Uber as a whole, not only as the person who's driving the car or the people who own the app and how they asset light. No, look at as a whole concept. It takes advantage of free market economy. You have a car, you want to drive, there's a customer who wants to go for somewhere. It's a peer-to-peer network. He is not an employee for you. You have not hired him because you are superior to him. It's a peer-to-peer network. And for him, it's a very low-cost enterprise. He's got some spare time. He's moving somewhere. He might as well carry you. It does a very important thing, which is a key in logistics. It saves the empty miles. And it passes on some of the benefits back to the consumer. Over time, these benefits are to come down because we've had a very large delta. Whenever you have innovation, you grow from maybe 20 to 80 or 90. So you feel that gap. From 90 to 100 is efficiency. So that pace will not be felt as much. But today we can feel that they are passing savings back. Another part is it's a very accurate billing based on GPS. You would never haggle with Uber or Ola today. You would haggle with a 3-wheeler person. You would haggle with a rickshawala who's just taking $10 because you're not sure that are you paying the right amount. Here, the route and the money is both assured, and you get that bill along with your route you have traveled on your phone. So you know exactly where you have gone and why you have been charged like that. And if there's a surcharge, many times you land at Delhi airport in the evening and it says that the fare today is 3x. So you are knowing upfront that there is a surcharge today, I'll charge 3 times. So you have to press that button to say, yes, I'm willing to pay that amount. So it's a very fair and transparent process. It's very safe. If you are in the cab and you want to just inform your family that you're traveling there, just send them, press a button, and that link goes to your family. Whoever you want to, either on a text message or on the mail. And they can track you till you reach. A very safe, and of course you are traceable all along. It's also sustainable because it's sharing the profits between all the different modes. Now, this looks like, can Uber happen in transport? Well, actually, it is happening in transport. If you look at the general industry of India, the general goods, it completely works on this. Rather than having an app, you have commission agents called brokers. There's some of my friends who are from that industry of basic transport would understand that. Those brokers are neutral to the carriers. They just provide an exchange between the truck driver owner and the final user. It may be A transport company or logistics provider providing to a OEM today and B tomorrow. The trucks may remain the same. And they ensure that they're looking at demand and supply and the rates change every day. But does it happen in auto industry? It does not. So auto industry, because of customization, especially CBU, decided we are only going to induct owners. So only registered trucks can come there. So on one hand, we do understand the Uber example. On the other hand, we see if you're not registered with us, we will not give you a load. You have to be registered. So every truck owner can't be registered with every OEM in the country. So that adds to those miles. So what is the solution? There is a solution and it's being done by many companies. It's called 3PL. There is a plant in west of India where it's being done for the last many years, transporting a car which is not very expensive on a 3PL model. How does it work? The 3PL has a set amount of inventory which he keeps to service all the difficult lanes and tide over any bad times. Rest, he ensures that the person who wants to go west goes west and not to east, and who wants to go to south goes south and not to north. So that ensures that it's a win-win for everybody, and everybody who's coming in, as long as they are satisfying set norms, are able to get a load. It keeps all the stakeholders happy and win-win. So the Uber way is there already. We have to understand where it is and use it. Coming to our next point, which is going to be disruptive in logistics, is 3D printing. Many people have forgotten that there used to be a lot of documents, couriers flowing around, and letters coming in. When did anybody get a last letter delivered by a post office? Last month? Did anybody get a letter last month delivered by a post office? Bill here? That's all. And bills in Canada. What about India? So what happened to that? When these letters became digital, when the checks became RTGS, all the courier companies were crying that our business will be finished because what was moving as a document is now moving electronically. What do? Some companies like FedEx adopted a model called Kinko's. Kinko's was that you would send that big data packet over internet to a FedEx Kinko's shop. They would print it, bind it, and deliver it to you. It was more like a back-end processing. We have that also in India and South, a small company operating a similar model. But today, we don't even realize that couriers and those documents have probably become passé. It's just happened last 10 years, not even 10 years, when advent of mails. I think the mail accounts in Indian people would not be more than 10 years old, where they can send a decent quality of attachment, not just text. So what happens if your aftermarket parcels stop going out, which are the critical air ones, and you just send an AutoCAD drawing and somebody prints it? What happens when an aircraft which is called aircraft on ground AOG has a part problem, and that part is probably somewhere in US, and they just print that part, and actually the plane takes off. So 3D printing is closer than you think. These printers are already out there, they're being used. And the cheapest one is just $2,000. That is all the cost which there is. And I have put here a small slide which shows you where all people are using it. It's currently being used by service supply chains, innovations, in aerospace, consumer good companies. So these uses are everywhere. They're currently also being used. And if you were to go to a supply chain conference in Europe or US, you probably would have a live demo of a 3D printer being used. And we have seen it. Many of us who like to watch Tom Cruise movies would have seen him printing these masks. So what is a 3D printer? It's just basically a robotic arm with instead of an ink, you have a compound. So this is closer than we think, and this will disrupt logistics. It will disrupt some of that part. So maybe we guys need to open some stores like the Kinko's to have 3D printing. Coming to another point, which is on automation, advanced robotics. What the group has done, they have tried to compress all these under different heads and make it under one slide. So automation in warehousing. Is there anybody from aftermarket here who handles warehouses? Is there anybody from aftermarket? No one. Okay. This has already arrived in many places, including a lot in India as well. In India, you are already having smart conveyors with scanning and doing most of the packing stuff. So automation in warehousing can be AGVs, it can be iBots, it can be smart systems. Instead of a person going to goods, the goods come to man. The basic concept is this. If you have a very large warehouse and the warehouse is going to become larger and larger, what do you do? Do you go horizontal? Do you go vertical? Do you do a mix of that? Or you just make a big silo, maybe of 30 meters high, and store all the goods there using automatic storage retrieval systems. And when you press a button, your software talks with the machine hardware and delivers that to you. So most companies who are in the business of B2C, business to consumer, are currently using these ASRS, both in Europe as well as in the US. Very less so far in Japan. Singapore, yes, but these countries are still slower to adopt to this technology because they don't have that kind of scale, which probably is in the US. So this is already there. The second part is driverless trucks. On 3rd of October this year, Daimler started the first truck on the Autobahn in Germany. Mercedes-Benz, the first truck with radar were tested this year, and it's also been tested in Nevada in the US. And 20,000 miles have been done in this year itself of a driverless truck. Now, this is closer than we think. If you think, somebody gave a different example that why is it such a big thing? When you go to take an elevator, is there an operator? No, you just press the button, you go up. Just like an elevator. The example may not be correct because elevator moves in a cage. There is no humans out there. So it can be more akin to a railway, where it has still taken time because railway also has humans on the way. For it to come to cars, which is unpredictable, you have in aerospace because every aircraft is equipped with a radar. So they can talk to each other, they've got high amount of electronics there. But for trucks, humans, cattle, everything on the way, it's not going to be easy. But it has already been tested in terms of how it can help in reducing accidents, increasing productivity, and having more miles to each truck. So as the truck's prices go up, emission standards go up, we are able to use the same and have a little bit higher, little bit lower cost per kilometer. This is 2026. Third is drones. Now, why drones? Well, for small parcels and areas, terrain which is difficult to navigate, a drone is a very easy thing. There are many areas in India, in the hilly areas, where there's a landslide and you can't reach medicine. Drones are getting regulatory approval. Some of them have already been tried in Alaska. They've also been tried in Europe. under government regulation. And the cheapest drone is less than $1,000, made in China. Low range, 10 kilometers, low height. So all these things are coming in, and they are closer than we think. The drones, we assume by 2017, you would have some drone. This is a live example of Amazon Prime, which is their service, landing at the doorstep of a home in the US as a case study. Moving forward, I have a lot of slides, but I'll try to cover it quickly. I hope everybody is still awake. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. This is a very interesting one, digital supply chains. People like Microsoft and Apple have been telling the car makers, you guys don't know how to make cars. You make such obsolete stuff. And you've been Tesla who's been telling Apple that you guys know nothing, you are the graveyard of Tesla. So a lot of noises out there in terms of how things work. Why is that? Microsoft and Apple feel that I have given you a machine with a hardware. If I have something new, I can just give you a software on that, and that same equipment can work better. If I've given you a car with 100 horsepower, which works at a certain timing using a belt and a certain amount of fuel injection, why can I not change that timing and that algorithm using a software and upgrade to give you 140 horsepower? So you just buy the car once, but over time you keep upgrading it. You require hill assist. You don't have to buy it right now. You go to a hill station, you buy it for 4 days and use that piece of equipment there. So examples which you have here, Apple sells the phone first, and then they sell music and others without using a physical supply chain. I don't even recall when last anybody would have bought a DVD or a CD. Maybe you rented it from some library, but we don't buy it anymore. You don't buy music anymore, you just download it. In India, it's mostly free. So free for different reasons. So you don't download it at all. YouTube, that's just a supply chain. You want to see a movie or something, you just go to YouTube. Everybody experiences it. Year4, this company here, it's an Indian company. This is the company, today when you go to a movie hall, there is no reel, what we used to call there, which is playing at the back end. It's digital content being streamed directly. You pay money for a show, you get that digital content. You don't pay, you don't get it tomorrow. There's nothing like you have one reel and running into cinema hall something. So this company is already there in India who's doing that. So today the digital supply chain says that the supply chain will work digitally, but it doesn't need to be there in physical form. So whatever you can deliver without using a physical form, that is digital. So this could be a killer, and this is a killer for Apple. They make humongous amount of money on this. The automakers should also make some more money and give some to us as well. Now, changing track completely to coming back to the hardcore stuff right now, which is about boosting manufacturing and productivity by these two initiatives. One is the Skill India. A little bit has been spoken about it. I'll just give some numbers on that. That there are about 4,300 national occupation standards. So everybody in India want to go to university and want to be having a desk job. That's not possible. So the government decided that we must have some operational standards for people to do other jobs, be it an electrician, be a carpenter, or be somebody who's making cars. So they also made 137 for logistics as well. And there are 249 partners covering about 4,600 training centers across the country today. We are also one of the partners, and we have done about 75,000 trainings in our logistics field in the last 10 years on this. So this is something which is very important for the country. It is very new, just a few years old. Give it a few more years, and you would have people who, when they come out from college, do have the vocational skills. The other part is Make in India. Make in India has been covered by Rajiv, so I will not touch upon what he has covered. Just that in the 25 sectors which are part of the Make in India, 100% FDI has been made available in all but 3. Out of those 3, one is defense. and one is media. So it's pretty much open, and this began in September 2014, and till November end, so far 18 billion US dollars have been committed. But in terms of the ease of doing business, the slogan was from red tape to red carpet. That has not yet been realized, and the intent is there. It would take some time. Now, coming to overall, with manufacturing becoming digital, we also in logistics and supply chain have to come to that level. And this is a slide which depicts how things are changing. What you would see a very common thread is that most innovations are digital. So these computers and all the Terminator movies and others, whatever, they are taking over the world. And whether they take over us or not remains to be seen, but they are taking over the world. And that's a common thread. Now, the Industrial Revolution was built on power. Supply chain will be built on logics. That's a big difference out there. Till the second revolution, Industrial Revolution came with power. Without power, it was not there. It was just on steam and coal. The logistics industry in India today has the key ingredients, which is of entrepreneurship. What it requires, along with this, is capital, which is no longer a constraint. Capital availability is no longer an issue. What is important is partnerships and mutual respect, which is secret sauce to ensure that we can transform the stakeholders into a well-oiled team. Now, transformation doesn't happen mostly without a partnership. Generally, it happens best alone, when you know it's your own money which you are burning and you can do it best. But if you can form partnerships to have these innovations and looking at next level of supply chain logistics, what comes across is not only which is futuristic, but also very sustainable. And sometimes I think we in India kind of think not so highly of ourselves, which is a bit incorrect, because we generally view ourselves from the lens of the West, from whatever the Economist writes or whatever is there in the Times. I think we need to change that and look at what we have achieved and what we have not. People say it happens like this in India. Well, the bottom line, it happens. And how does it happen? You have some examples. India made the cheapest car in the world, the Nano, which is a world-class car. Forget about the marketing part of it. It's 1/4 the price of a Smart. There's a small car made, a quad, called the Qute by Bajaj. It is, again, at the cheapest price in the world. India runs the biggest two-wheeler factory for any brand across the world. And they load a humongous amount of trucks, sending all across the country, with all the seasons of the country, and we still manage it. So those are things which are not there anywhere else. We have the lowest cost of communication. Our cost of mobile telephony is among the lowest across the world. So I think we need to take comfort from all those innovations and have that feel that even if it's digital 4.0, logistics industry and the automotive industry would be able to make that transition. And we'll do it our way, and it will happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jasjit. I think that really brought everything together in a way for what we've been discussing across our panel, and looking at what this will really mean for supply chain providers and logistics, both in terms of disruption and opportunities. I know we're running behind. Shilpa mentioned right in the beginning that we don't need to be so Japanese about time in India, maybe, so we can be flexible. We'll probably start our next session a little bit later at 11:15, because I'd still like to give you a chance to raise some questions to our panel, so we'll extend our coffee, we'll make some time up at lunch or whatever we need to do. So does anybody have any questions for the panel? We have a question right here in the front. Microphone coming to you.
Hello.
Yeah.
I am Jaipal from Hale. I am talking in reference to Shilpa and Mr. Rajiv Bajaj and Jasjeet. Sorry. So all of you have mentioned that Shilpa has mentioned that the quality of engineering graduate is not up to the mark, and you have also mentioned for the skill set in your vision. Jasjeet has said the Skill India. So I just, before I ask my question, I just want to build a background for that. We talk about IT, we talk about finance, banking, and the growth, the upgradation, the technology we are seeing right now is the result of that 15, 20 years ago, there's a huge population of India who opted IT as a career option. So the same thing should happen for supply chain management also. And my question is related to that only. Are we getting the fresh brains into the supply chain as the people are moving into the IT? The technology is like that. You purchase a smartphone today and after 3 or 6 months it's outdated. You need to upgrade it. The changes are happening like that in IT. But the things are changing in the supply chain that way. I think no. So are we getting fresh people in the industry, or do we need to attract fresh brains or maybe the fresh students for this particular thing as an career option? So this is my question. Thank you.
I think very good question, Jaipal. I think and all of us are associated with supply chain. Everybody in this room, it's clearly. So you gave a very good example about how a very large section of our young, educated, whether engineers or graduates or even much more, lesser skilled than graduates, started to opt for IT as a career option. There were 2 or 3 things going. One is it was seen as a ticket to a better salary. It was seen as a ticket to a better job. IT was associated with white-collar job. Everybody just wanted that. So it was seen as a job-creating engine, and there was a network of private training institutes which made us computer literate and some basic programming literate, and the engineers, of course, did advanced programming. And then in addition, if you also recall, is the big players in India also established very much of their own customized training campuses, colleges, etc. Long story short, it was all of these factors put together that have created the success that all of us and our growing middle classes enjoy. Now, I think the buzzword of supply chain is very much out there, but I think all of us need to start in our own small ways, or in probably in a, sort of a big association way to create the other steps. So supply chain as a discipline is being talked about, is definitely being talked about in engineering campuses. It's being talked about in management programs in a big way. All of us know at the back of e-commerce is essentially 2 engines. It's the technology engine and the supply chain engine. So the buzzword is there. It's still, at least let's say in the automotive industry, we still need to put more training into it within the companies themselves. But there's probably a need, and a lot of management institutes are creating special programs around it, but there's probably a need to create, what Jasjeet was mentioning, that they do training, probably a need to create some very good, real skill-oriented customized programs, which are then used by the industries. So simple graduates do those programs along with their jobs maybe, and that enhances the level of supply chain's capability within companies. Because right now, I think the tools are out there, but we are still looking at supply chain in a slightly more traditional manner. It's my view. Shilpa and Jasjeet, you can add to it.
I'll just add something from a slightly more social angle, okay? And when I say social, the reason why I'm saying that is because even when we go today to recruit, so I'm primarily an engineer myself. I'm an engineer and then I've done my MBA. if you go to a college and try to pick up graduates, okay, I'm not saying go to the best of colleges, go to an average good college. If you have 100 people in the room, okay, and you say, okay, we're recruiting 100 GETs, which departments do you want to get into? You'll get about 80, 85 of them who'll say, I want to get into R&D. Because that's your ticket to travel the world, your ticket to meet more people, easy jobs, flexible timing. Even guys who start off saying, I'm passionate about mechanical engineering, you know, like I want to build cars, I want to build these things. After some time, one round of going to the shop floor and, you know, wetting their shoes in grease, and they're like, no, I think I'll be better off, you know, in that office sitting. And they don't realize that after some time, they are the most rusted, the ones sitting in the offices and probably doing jobs which are more, you know, you're really not growing. And so there's something that I do, like when I do induction across all my brands, there's one thing that I always have told our employees. When you go back home, always talk about, you know, it's natural for all of us, right? We go back home and discuss all the negatives. Boss acha nahi hai, you know, my peers are like this, there's so much politics in office, this, and that's what your children or your family or your wives. So the respect for that job or the kind of work that we do or the kind of industry that we are in comes in only when people kind of realize, you know, how good a thing that are you doing. So to say, my father's doing is a transporter. Is not a big thing, right? Here somebody will say, what's the big thing about it? I mean, he probably has a job which is like crazy. Even on a holiday, he keeps getting calls in the night saying, oh, my truck is stuck there, transportation not happening, you know, all those things. So one is taking pride in the work that we do, first thing, and also talk about it. And even if you were to go to colleges, how many students do you think even know what are the kind of jobs available for some, you know, like, so, you know, you'd start in a particular study. What are the easiest jobs? Yes, but what are the other jobs as well? And what they don't realize is, if you actually pick up a niche industry, you grow faster, you learn better, you are, you know, your value proposition is much higher than competing with somebody who's in a pool of a lack of IT engineers or a lack of people sitting in those on desks and doing jobs, as compared to somebody here who's actually gone ground up and knows it. I mean, so that's your fastest success. And I think somewhere in between, we also lose it. You know, then after some time, we're like, that bloody fellow has that red color Mercedes and I'm still going around in my small car. You know? Yeah, no, that's how we start calculating success as well. So I think that's where the balance has to come, and we have to start talking and go back to colleges, teach them that there's something called supply chain. So there's, you know, if for somebody who studies in this particular line, there's a future in something like this. There's a big thing happening out there. It's a revolution. I mean, not necessary that somebody who goes outside and studies about it understands that, oh my God, supply chain is such a big thing. I never realized it's such a big thing when I was in India, right? So they make a success out of it and come here. But guys here don't even know that there is an opportunity like this. I think we have to go back to colleges, try and give some special lectures, or, you know, give them an opportunity to come and work with you. Yes, the strongest are the ones who survive. You know, the weak ones will anyway say, we'll choose the easy way out. But ultimately, you need guys who are passionate about it, no? See, there was a time when we'd say, like my mom's teacher, a retired teacher, there was a time when teaching was a passion. People would love to teach because mujhe acha lagta hai. I want to be with kids, I want to do this, and teaching as a profession was so well respected. Today, somewhere in between, I think now it's again picking back, but then it lost its way around, because the ones who were probably at the bottom in a class or probably didn't know what to do were picking up teaching. So what happens to your children? So that's why I'm saying socially, we all have to, if we don't talk, if we don't carry our own flags and say, you know, this is the best kind of job to do, I'm telling you, you should join. We ourselves sometimes go and tell back, no, it's okay, I think take an easy job. Yeah, this is like a tough one, you know. We should tell, no, I'll tell you, get into this thing. You will know what the challenges are. You'll know what it is to live life. You'll see the world. You know, I think socially, that's the way I look at it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll take one last question. We'll go to the man who didn't get a chance. So.
Thank you. I'm Suresh from Institute of Logistics. My question is, one second, Mr. Jasjit Sethi's session was very interesting. To add to it, I would like to say some more from this US roadmap on material handling and logistics. They have found out more developing technologies, like in addition, and also Mr. Gopal, big data is also accompanied with predictive analytics. I would like to know a little bit more about predictive analytics and also mobile and wearable computing, which was not discussed in this session. Thank you.
It's a question for Gopal, right? No question for me. You're supplementing something on that, right?
See, in terms of the predictive element, today a lot of times we are very reactive. Something happens, even like for example the recent case of Chennai floods, for example. A lot of organizations are reacting. Even the reaction is not complete. In the sense, you lose a lot of time, and after that also your reaction is not adequate. So the predictive analysis is when you are actually using the data that is available to plan for example, peaks and troughs, and at least have some sense of what is likely to happen over the next 6 months to a year. So when the data is able to support that kind of predictive analytics, which means then you can have the right amount of warehousing, right amount of trucks. So there won't be a last minute, and just going back to one of the points that Jagdish said, jugaad. So you won't have to do any jugaad. So which means you don't have to do any patchwork when it comes to, because you do that patchwork because things were unexpected. So that's how you can actually use data. And today it's not that it's an alien concept or a new concept. A lot of supply chain companies are actually going to their end customers and saying, we can help you support in terms of forecasting or predictive techniques. And that is becoming one of the solutions that they are able to successfully offer. Okay. And of course, the other points, wearables, etc., it's still evolving. A lot of companies are bringing in different products. So I think it is more at an evolution stage where customers are trying out different things. So there will be a lot of trial and error over the next maybe 1 year to 2 years time before it actually becomes, before you start seeing like a WhatsApp for cargo or something like that. It will take some time. Yes, there is. But I feel that at least it will take some time till there is iterations that happens. Yeah, thank you.
I would probably just echo that briefly. We see some examples slowly happening in the automotive industry. Volkswagen is using 3D goggles now in Wolfsburg. Their biggest plant is a plant that builds 700,000 cars a year, so there's some scale and scope. Also some big warehouses, we're seeing them trialed. Maybe not big use yet, but that's starting. I think we're going to probably have to end it there, even though there's a lot more that we could obviously discuss, a lot more very interesting topics. Our panelists are here, of course. Do find them in coffee, lunch, continue the discussion. We have our think tanks after lunch as well, where we can also come together and flesh out more ideas. Before we go to coffee, though, I would like to thank all of our panelists. They put great presentations together, and we really appreciate the time. We'll restart back in here at 11:15.